guys, it's ASMR YB, and today I'm going to tell you about the case of a young woman named Ariel Spillner. So, Ariel was just the best way to describe her is one of those people, that you hear about everything she was doing in life, and you just think, like, damn, okay, she was really, on her way somewhere. She was just finishing up pharmacy school and literally 1 year away from her master's degree. She already had a chemistry degree, and she was a third degree black belt. So she knew some karate. She also played basketball in college, and her family said she was just a good person, just one of those like genuinely good, kind, responsible people. Like, I'd say pretty much the type of person that like most parents want their kids to grow up to be like. So it starts on November 4th, and Ariel leaves her house, ordinary day, everything's just normal. And she's headed to her friend Jamaica's place. And because it's Jamaica's birthday, and Ariel was going over there to just hang out, and celebrate. And she was even going to groom Jamaica's dog because she did that on the side as well. So it was like a normal, pretty much like a good day, and it was supposed to be chill, like no stress, birthday vibes, music, laughs, hanging out. And Ariel had no idea that she'd actually never leave the house alive. So let's talk about Jamaica for a second. You know what I mean? So her name is Jamaica Simon Mills, and she and Ariel had been friends for about a year. They made TikToks together, and like not like awkward, TikToks, like forced ones. They were just like friends, like having fun, dancing, joking around. Except there was one TikTok that Jamaica had actually posted months before this, happened. And in that TikTok, like the TikTok said, I'm heavy on protecting myself, even if it means protecting me from you. And at the time, like, you think like, oh, it's like a quote, like you don't really think too much about it, like, kind of like whatever about it. But after what happened, people started looking at the video like, was she talking about Ariel? Was something going on behind the scenes? And like, here's the thing, there's no actual evidence that anything was wrong between them. They had like no fights prior, no drama, nothing. That's just like speculation. That's the only thing people could like go off of. Which makes like the rest of the story kind of be like, it makes you like question it. Like what was even happening. So Ariel is at Jamaica's place, right? And everything seems normal according to Jamaica. She said later that they smoked some green stuff together. They'd apparently done that before, so it wasn't like new or experimental. Like, it was normal. But something about this night was different, because something snapped. And in Jamaica's version of events, like, they start getting weirder and weirder, and like confusing, like all over the place. So she tells police that she suddenly got paranoid and thought Ariel was going to cut her hair. Then she said Ariel shoved scissors next to her. And then she said she only thought she saw the scissors, but didn't actually see them, which is like, what? Then she said Ariel made some kind of like hand gesture that scared her. And like, that just sounds really confusing. You know, like it's all over the place. Um, like none of the information like matches up, and then she keeps going back and saying it was actually this and that. And you know, the police they didn't actually find any scissors in her, like at her place. Not in the living room, not by the couch, not even like around the area where it was like supposed to have happened. You know, nothing at all. And meanwhile, the people in the home said that Jamaica was acting way off before the shooting. Like, she was mumbling, rambling, and like, she had been contradicting herself. You know, not making sense at all. And, you know, as things start to unravel and you start to hear like the next part, you'll understand why everyone is still scratching their heads about like the whole situation and what happened. Because at some points in the middle of the confusion and like the paranoia, Jamaica walked into her bedroom and grabbed her, you know, like her pew pew, came back toward Ariel, and she shot her, you know. And a witness in the other room said that the only thing she heard was Jamaica saying, "Be you trippin'," followed by a gunshot, and you know, she was killed. And almost immediately afterward, Jamaica then shot herself in the stomach. You know, so police believe that this was either accidental or some sort of panic, confusion, or reaction to, you know, the situation itself. And she actually survived, but just barely. And when police got there, Jamaica was naked, she was bleeding, mumbling, she was apologizing, saying that she was high, saying Ariel shot her. I believe she probably shot herself to blame it on her as like self-defense. And then she said that she just didn't remember what happened. Then she said she shot Ariel, then claiming that it was like accidental. You know, and every like version of the story seems to like contradict the last one. Nothing she said like actually matched like the evidence that was there. It was like she was living inside of like a completely different reality, you know. But there was something important. You know, the Mary Jane intoxication is not a legal excuse, though. Not if you took it voluntarily, not if you thought it was normal, unless like someone like, if you have like a medical document, you know, and someone was to do it to you, not something that you volunteered to do, you know, in like an unpredictable way, it won't reduce the charges unless so. And like, so the prosecutors charged Jamaica with first degree reckless homicide plus a firearm enhancer, and together that's a maximum of 65 years. Not intentional, you know, homicide, not premeditated, you know. And the DA didn't think those charges would fit the case because these two were friends, you know, prior to the incident, and there was no motive, no history of like tensions between them. This wasn't a like a planned this was something that was just sudden, but still, deadly, and still caused by Jamaica's actions at the end of the day. And the real heartbreak in this story comes from Ariel's family. They had just talked to her earlier that day, and they said she had left the house smiling, happy, excited, about the birthday plans. She had also some exams coming up, and graduation wasn't like too far away. you know she pretty much, like, she had her whole life mapped out already, and just for it to, in the middle of the night, her family, to get this call, and they received the news that Ariel had been murdered. But and it's someone who she considered a friend. And her mother, described the next morning as like waking up in a reality that didn't make sense. You know, having to plan pretty much like a funeral instead of watching her daughter finish school as she had planned. They did a fundraiser that was created to help give Ariel the funeral she deserved, because this wasn't it wasn't just a sudden death. It was like a senseless death. There was no reason to this. It was violent, and no one could explain why this even happened. It's something that should have never happened. And I think that's like really the most like haunting part of the case. There's really no why. There's no like explanation, or like, oh, like they had a history, or they had problems prior. Because like one moment they're friends, she's going to her party, they're hanging out, and she's even gonna groom her dog, and the next minute, Ariel is like not with us anymore, and the other one's like bleeding on the ground from a wound that she caused to herself. And everyone's like, was it paranoia? Was it caused out of like fear? Was it like a sudden break from reality? Like a mental health crisis? Or was it like a reaction to the green that they had consumed? Or like something medical? And people feel that no one will really know what happened, really. Even the defense attorneys reviewing the case said that they don't have a clear answer yet as to like the reason. They are looking into like her mental health, medications, toxology, all of it, but in reality there might never be an actual explanation as to why this happened the way it did, because it had like no prior history, no signs. It wasn't like a friendship that was like falling apart. It wasn't like they even had like the day like tensions like full of like the day wasn't full of tensions, and it was just that night. And even within the night, it was a regular night. They were hanging out, and next thing you know, it was a tragedy. Two lives pretty much. One ended and the other one's now going to prison, and the family's left mourning, and like the community has been left with just a bunch of questions and pretty much no answers. Which, it really sucks. Not only for her, she had her whole life planned out, but her family as well. I'd say, condolences to Ariel, and really her family as well. So this is pretty much today's story. I'm gonna be doing these if you enjoy true crime stories and you enjoy them in ASMR format. Make sure to subscribe